Okay, we're going to call the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation meeting to order at 6 o'clock and January 11th. And so we'll start with any public comments. Herb Goldsmith.
Yeah, right through here. I'm going to speak now as a citizen and not as a member of the firm-based task force. Okay, and my deal is, I would like, as this EDC moves forward, to consider that the north end of town, which has become a priority, the mayor can address that later on, maybe it's a new business and what I mean, future agenda item, that the north end is going to be looked at through the form-based task force, and that in the future they may be calling on you or through some mechanism asking for help and paying for the studies that may be required. And that's really about it.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, let's go to the regular business.
Item 3.1 is approval of the meeting minutes from the regular board meeting on December 14th, 2015. You should have a copy of those in your packet.
Has everybody read the minutes? And we have any discussion items on the minutes from the last meeting?
I have no comment.
Okay.
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, let's go into the financial summary.
This is the financial period ending December 31st, 2015. We extremely appreciate the finance department and their timeliness in being able to get this out for the early meeting this month. Tracy is great to work with. On revenues, on our budget of $1.933 million to date through the end of December in the first quarter, we brought in $498,000 and some change, which is about 25% of our budget, 25.78% of our budget, which is 25% of the year that we've been through. On expenditures, we're looking at the same 1.933 budget. We've spent $297,000 or 15.4% of budget. When you look at revenues, they're tracking right along, just slightly above where we've been in the previous years. When you look at sales tax, it's come back more in line with what we saw last year for the December period. Looking at the expenditure chart, most of our budget is debt service and personnel and contractual services, and then we've got maintenance and occupancy, and then a little bit of other down there in that 10%. And a small sliver, you can finally see it showing up in supplies and materials. Looking at our expenditure chart, we're the brown line on the bottom. We're running considerably below where we've been in the previous 2 years in expenditures. We're tracking quite well. The unaudited fund balance on December 30th was $2.6 million, and then that leaves us right now with a gross fund balance of 2.6 less the $483,000 that we have to have in 90-day or 25% reserve restricted funds for good accounting practices. So that is the financial statement in a synopsis. Yes, sir.
I just have one quick question. I know we always go back and we compare years prior.
Yes, sir.
But our revenue is changing year over year. Is it possible when looking at this, if we could just see what percentage of where we were each month, so we could sit there and say, okay, in January, we're at 25% of the business, we're at 16%, where were we in 15, where were we in 14% of budget? So we can just do that reference.
Okay. So you want to see a year-to-year percentage reference?
Yeah, just because since our revenue is changing so much, it's hard. It's hard. If we sit there looking at number 180, oh, it looks in line. But if we don't know what the revenue is, just as a basis.
For revenue and expenses?
Thank you.
do you have a recap on bond debt? So kind of a timeline of when these, Christie would like to have a subschedule that just shows the maturity of those bonds. I know that we did that at one time.
We don't have mics. I suggest we all speak up because there's a lot of folks out there.
Okay,
And
all right.
I can't hear anything you guys are saying, so.
Christie is asking for a schedule of debt service, and we do have that as staff. It's something that we brought to the board on several occasions, and so we'll get it to Christie. And if y'all want a formal presentation on our debt service, we can make that happen as well.
We've talked about it before, but so much of our budget is debt service, so it's just a question of when does that start falling off?
It'll start falling off.
Soon.
Fiscal year 17, we will actually close out a bond, and so we'll pick up, I believe it's almost a little over $200,000 in fiscal year 18.
All right, thank you.
All right. Moving on,
We need a motion and a,
yeah, we got a motion,
We accept the financial summary.
Second.
all in favor? Thank you. All right, 4.3, consideration, discussion, possible action.
you ready? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, on the real property. I'm sorry. We want to, yeah, 4.2.
No, this is 4.1.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4.1. Sorry about that. Got a little messed up there. Okay, we want a presentation from Elliott Electric Supply. This is an industrial park land issue.
Hey, I'm suggesting, no, he's got an actual clicker. Sorry.
I didn't.
We're ready.
Good. My name is Josh Thomas. I'm the Construction and Properties Manager for Elliott Electric Supply. We, as you know, we purchased a property here in the business park, and we really look forward to getting going, opening here in Bastrop. I've stolen this little slideshow from our marketing manager, so I'm not as familiar with it, but I'll go through and kind of give you guys an idea. If you don't know who Elliott Electric Supply is, who we are as a company, kind of where we started from and where we are today, and then, of course, our connection with the Bastrop location here in the business park. So, Elliott Electric Supply was started by Bill Elliott in 1972 in Nacogdoches, Texas, was our first store. He actually was in the electrical supplies business with his father. They had an argument. He said, "I'll start my own company then." So, started out with a $20,000 loan and opened the first store. There were only 3 employees. First year, less than $500,000 in sales. 2001, his partner, his wife, passed away, and Billy, who was his son, Billy Elliott, was managing our Round Rock location at the time. Moved home and took over the vice president responsibilities. Today, Elliott Electric is in Wholesale Magazine listed as the 13th largest distributor in the United States. We have 100, well actually this is probably a few months old, so we've got 141 locations starting next month. I'm currently working on a project in Roswell, New Mexico. That'll be our 141st location. Overall, over 1,500 employees for the company, over 2 million square feet of building nationwide or regional. We're in 7 states: Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. 2014 sales, we're still, I wish I had 2015 numbers on here because we're still working those out, but 2014, as you can see, getting close to $1 billion in sales. That's Bill's goal before he moves on, I guess, finally retires. He wants to see $1 billion in sales for the company. Over $121 million in inventory at our locations. And our primary vendor that we supply is Eaton. Everything from, they own Cooper wiring devices, Cooper lighting, and of course Eaton boxes and things like that. Store services, we have a corporate office in Nacogdoches. At our corporate office, you can see all the departments that we have there. We do the accounting for the entire company out of the corporate office in Nacogdoches, credit, inventory control, computer services. We have our own IT department that we write all of our own software for day-to-day business. We don't have any third-party, well, besides Microsoft, everybody's got that. So, but we don't have any third-party programming that we use in our stores. Human Resources Department, marketing, publishing, training, and they left me off of here, but also construction. So, as far as how Elliott Electric we supply, kind of described as a hub and spoke type thing. We basically have a host store that is a larger host store. This for Bastrop, our host store is the Austin location. We have just over 69,000 square feet in Austin. Austin store has 7 satellite stores. Bastrop will be the 8th satellite store. Basically, from our sales for the day, that goes into a queue at our distribution centers. So if we sell a lamp or a breaker or whatever here in the Bastrop location, that is automatically sent over to our distribution center in Austin. And from there, we have nightly restocking. All of our distribution centers are 24/6 locations. So every night we have people that go and pull the stock that is sold from the previous days from the satellite locations. Before 7 o'clock the next morning, that truck is at the store and the warehouse employee / driver has already replenished the store for the material that was sold the previous day. So basically it's the advantage of having a 70,000 square foot warehouse with a 10,000 square foot building here in Bastrop. So, and of course we have delivery throughout the day as well. So if the customer needs something here in a couple hours, we can have our driver from the distribution center bring it out to Bastrop. I won't go through and read all that because it's kind of what I just described, but basically it just makes every inventory as large as possible. Austin is our 4th largest distribution center. Our largest is in Dallas, which is 150,000 square foot. Just some pictures. This actually shows our San Antonio distribution center, which I was actually at a meeting with there this morning. That one is 88,000 square feet. So we have, well, that's a whole different animal than Bastrop will be, but as you can see just from some of the pictures, it's a pretty busy and convenient place for our electrical contractor customers. These are some of our older satellite host locations. Of course, the store 1 in Nacogdoches, that's the original location that we started out with. Some of the other area locations. Typical satellite location is 5,000 to 15,000 square feet, somewhere in there. But I didn't build any of those, so it'll look a lot better here in Bastrop. This is a scrolling, I guess, time frame of from when we opened in 1972. You'll see the growth of the company, the sales individual in the years on the left and at the bottom for the total throughout the years. So as you can see, from when we started to where we're at today, there's a lot more dots on the board. And I'll point out, I started in 2009, so hopefully I had a little bit to do with that bottom part of the graph. Actually, I did start in 2009, and since I've worked for Elliott Electric well, Elliott Electric, I've installed or opened 39 new locations. Bastrop will actually be 41 because I've still got Roswell that's going to open. Some of the beliefs of the company, so really this gets into some of the stuff that the marketing manager and sales will know more about than I do, but basically, long story short, our profitability is important, but top customer service is a top priority. That was one of our main focuses in our meeting this morning that we had, and if we're good to our customers, they're going to keep coming back, and hopefully we'll have the inventory and the material for the customers to make them happy. Some of our, I guess, comments that meet the customer's expectations first time, every time. Must serve our customers better than our competitors. You know, basically just best customer service. Site, Joseph will help us out with this. This is the most recent Google Earth picture that we could find.
Yeah, those trees aren't.
Our site is actually right there.
Yeah, the site is
all
clear.
there.
Here.
Right there, yes, sir. So, and then the glass company is right there now. So,
Yeah, good evening. My name is Joseph Wilrich with Befco Engineering, and I'm assisting Elliott Electric with the site engineering aspects of the project. But as Josh was saying, they purchased the 3-acre tract right here. Jamco is what's located down here, and of course the street improvements and regional improvements are occurred in the business park. The project, the building's going to be a 10,168 square foot building. They're projecting annual sales of about 2.5 million with an estimated construction start date of January 25th or as soon as possible.
we actually submitted our plans to the city the week of Christmas, so we understand with holidays, New Year's and things like that. But as soon as we can get our, we requested for a site permit to start dirt work. As soon as we can get that, if it's earlier than that, we'll start.
And as you can see, they have some aggressive dates here of wanting to be open by May 9th to get that store out of the ground and up and running. So this is our site plan, as I mentioned. We're a 3-acre lot. Our limits of construction are about 1.5 acres, and of course the bold outline being the 10,000 square foot office warehouse building. The gray hatched area represents our proposed concrete pavement for the project. We have a 32-foot wide driveway entering the property from Technology, and we've got 20 proposed surface parking spaces that meet the BEDC and city requirements. We've got our setbacks. We've got a 50-foot setback along the south property line, and there's 30s around the other adjacent property lines. And further, there's a 20-foot landscape setback as required by the codes along the frontage. We do have a dumpster. It's located right here on the south end of the site, and it will be enclosed with a masonry enclosure as required by city and BEDC regulations. As it relates to utilities, there's a 12-inch water line along the west side of Technology that we will be tapping and bringing service across for our meter to the property. And then there's an 8-inch wastewater line along the south side that will be tying in for wastewater service. As far as drainage is concerned, our entire site will be draining to the southwest corner of the property to an existing area inlet. That inlet was designed as part of the overall BEDC improvements and is designed for fully developed drainage conveyance to a regional detention pond located to the south. This is our landscape plan for the project. Probably the best way to describe the plan is it's going to be what you traditionally see in and around Bastrop and within the business park. So within the 1.5 acres of limits of construction, that will all be revegetated with grass, and then of course the required trees and shrubs as required by the codes. The species proposed will be those from the City of Bastrop approved plant list. And as I mentioned before, we do have the 20-foot landscape setback along the front. Again, we've got the larger circles represent the proposed trees as required, and the smaller circles represent the proposed shrubs. But kind of just in closure to the landscape plan, it will be what you see throughout the business park. And with that, I'll turn it over to Josh to talk about the building.
So essentially, we're meeting city and you guys' requirements, or the business park requirements for the aesthetics of the building. So our front wall facing Technology Drive will be 100% masonry, just as everyone requires. The other 3 sides will be metal building. So basically, just an artist rendering of what it'll end up like. I thought I had another slide. That was it? Okay. Really, that's it. I mean, if anybody has any questions about any day-to-day operations or, what we're going to be doing at this specific location, I can try to answer those as best as possible.
I love that slide where it kept going with the dots and the dots, but what took you so long to get here? I'm just joking.
Okay.
I'm glad.
Because I was going to blame that on our regional manager.
There you go. I like that. Good plan.
He's not here, right?
He's not here to defend himself.
Right. I've got some cards. I actually left my computer bag at the house, but I'll leave some of these out here in case anyone has any questions or thinks of something or whatever, and Sean has my contact information. So.
Yep. They all looked at Bastrop previously, and now you regret not building here previously. But you're here now.
Kind
so
of, yes.
It all works out. This was for informational purposes only. They're getting ready to, they submitted their plans, and Josh wanted to come in and present them to the board so that if y'all had questions, you could ask. This is a project that was approved last summer, and they've been working on putting together a pre-construction package for about 6 months now, and we're glad to have them, and will be a welcome addition to the park as well as to Bastrop. With our continued growth and our demand for electrical supplies, Elliott and the EDC, at least from the staff level, we believe that they will be highly successful in meeting the needs of the market here. So. I know you've got to get back to Nacogdoches.
Right. We're excited to be here, so thank
Mike,
you.
no hold up at the city, not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
So Sean, there's no variances or anything on this?
Nope.
It's straight line?
This is all, they're going to meet the city code and the CCRs for the BEDC, and it was really just a presentation update on the project. So there's no action needed.
Okay. Moving on to the next issue, we have representatives, I guess, to talk about the YMCA.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
So, who's going to be speaking to us? Okay.
Let me give a little bit of background on this as well. So,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
the YMCA and Mike invited me to a meeting on the 24th of November at Mike's office to kind of give a status update. From that, the Y wanted to meet with Steve and visit about the BEDC participating in a YMCA development. That meeting was scheduled in December. We asked Christy Coke to attend as well. Steve needed to bow out because he had other obligations. Gary Schiff and Joe Bill, it was his first meeting after being appointed outside of a board meeting to attend, were available on very short notice to be there, and we appreciate the board participation. And so the Y and staff and the board members kind of went through what BEDC participation might look like in the WISE project. They laid that project out, and they'll go through that here in just a minute with y'all. And enclosed within my memo to the board, based on that meeting and guidance from the directors that participated, is kind of a recommendation from staff if the board so desires to move forward with participating in this project. But I will turn it over to James and Andrew and kind of let them give a little bit larger overview of what they're thinking and where the Y is at and what they're proposing.
Could I ask a question before we get started? I read your report on the page 28, what's your deal with the city's HUD grant money and dealing with the judge?
One of the concerns that came out of the 24th meeting, and I meet with the judge on a fairly regular basis on a variety of topics, I wanted to make sure that if the city and EDC considered this in the first quarter based on the activity centered plan that was moved forward by the council in December, that there was still that opportunity for the Y and the city to go back to the county and say, hey, we've got an alternate site and a different project with the YMCA. Would that be considered as part of that HUD GLO grant in looking at a different site? And those are basically what the judge has told me is that if there was a YMCA project and an alternate site proposed in the first quarter, that the county would work with the Y and the city in looking at that alternate plan.
Well, what I don't understand is the HUD grant is with the city, has nothing to do with BEDC. You could have went to the city manager's office to find out that information, or both of you could have visited with the judge, instead of you going and Mike visiting, and we get two different signals to the county judge about what's going on over here. The BEDC doesn't have anything to do with the HUD grant. If they're coming to ask for separate funding from the BDC, that's fine, that's good, and it's separate. But the BDC has nothing to do with the HUD grant money at the city level, period.
Well, I'll give you an example, Willie. I mean, I talked to the judge about, our December 31 deadline. And
We met that deadline.
And we had talked repeatedly at the council. I'm talking about the council now. We talked repeatedly about that, and what the judge told me, contrary to, not contrary, but somewhat different answer than what Sean got, which was that after December 31st, HUD or GLO or anybody could pull the plug on this deal, on any change, that we had to have ours in place, which the council did, but that if he couldn't control the federal government saying, I'm sorry, you're too late, and that's a risk that anybody would run after December 31st. And so that's a whole lot different than him telling you that the first quarter was legitimate. So, I mean, I'm not saying he didn't tell you the truth, but maybe I misunderstood what he said, but it was kind of like, I'm not guaranteeing anything after December 31st is what he told me.
Well, and that's what that paragraph says, is that he would work
Well, no,
with the city and the
my deal is
YMCA if...
My deal is that we authorize the city manager to work with the county judge in moving this project forward with the guidelines and the deadlines in place that the city had to meet, and that's my point. It had nothing to do with BEDC.
But I thought you were saying we might get 2 or 3 different answers, and we need to have a coordinated effort about who talks to who.
Well, my point is, from this point forward, when we move forward with the deadlines and what's expected from the city, it needs to be going through Mike and the city manager's office. This is not a BEDC grant. This money was given to the city council, to the city of Bastrop, not BEDC. And everything that should have happened should have went through his office. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
All right, well, I mean, yeah, I would say to that I guess it's a county grant, and, we're all trying to...
Well, it's coming through the feds to the state, to the county, to the city.
Okay.
So, kind of where it is.
Well, okay, but the county, I guess they've agreed to allow it to be used for this purpose, for the purpose of emergencies,
Yeah,
obviously.
and that's what we agreed to way back, the city council agreed to way back.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but I do think that if we do anything, if anybody's moving in any direction beyond December 31st and what the council agreed to on December 8th, we need to make sure that it's maybe one person doing the talking. That's where I was trying to pick up with Willie. So.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, very good. And I think that, when I read this, I read that, there was meeting with Mike on November 24th, and from that, maybe the communication should have been a little bit better with Mike's office, but it is where it is, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward, and this will be something.
Yeah, I don't want to put the
successful.
judge in the spot of not knowing who he's talking to.
Right. I'm with you.
Well, if you read it, it basically says that it is the city and the YMCA, if they want to consider something, that they're gonna have to go deal with it, but we wanted to make sure we dotted our i's and crossed our t's in advance, and we weren't considering something that wasn't a possibility.
Yeah, okay.
If I might add something here, give a little bit of history. Prior to the meeting that we had with the YMCA, I was visiting with Sean. I mean, the impetus for having the meeting, because prior to that, the city council had pretty much given up on the hope that we could put a YMCA together with the funds that were available because of the time frame involved. We had $1.6 million. The city had to make a commitment to use those funds, have a real plan in place by December 31st. Well, in some of the earlier council meetings, at least I'll speak from my impression of where we were, and that is that I didn't feel like we had time to go out and do a bond issue. We wouldn't have been able to meet the deadline of December 31st, go to the public, say, we want some money to do this effort to bring a Y here. We had to have a commitment by December 31st, so the council decided to put together a Plan B, which was a way to use the $1.6 million to build a facility that would meet the requirements of the HUD grant, the FEMA requirements for shelter, but also would be used as a community space. And as we were talking about that use of the money, at least we felt like we were capturing something that would be useful to the city, obviously not a YMCA, not a gymnasium, not a swimming pool, but something that the community could use. I went and met with Sean, and he indicated to me something that I had never heard before, and that was that if we, the BEDC city participation, could come up with $2.5 million, or would commit to $2.5 million investment into the facility, that the YMCA would finance that for the city/BEDC at 0% interest. Well, that really piqued my interest, and that is a way that we could move quickly on getting financing for this, perhaps not by December 31st, but if we can still meet the deadlines that the judge and the grant has on us, which is to complete the project within 2 years, I think it is, Mike?
September 30th, 17.
To complete the project within 2 years, that we might be able to pull this off and actually get a substantial Y facility here. And so I started looking at, well, how could we finance this project between BEDC and the city? And at that point, we had the meeting with the YMCA, and they discussed, well, how much could BEDC put into this thing? And obviously, BEDC could not speak to the council, and that is an item on tomorrow's agenda for the council. But the BEDC group that we had there thought that this group might approve up to $700,000, which would leave another $1.8 million for the city to finance. I looked at the city budget and came up with some areas in our budget that I felt like we could squeeze some dollars out to make a commitment on a long-term basis to finance through the YMCA, to pay the YMCA back for the $1.8 million part of that, and that discussion, I guess, will be in better length tomorrow. But for this group's knowledge, we needed to make sure that we kind of had all the ducks in a row. We needed to know that we had a commitment from the county, or at least a semi-commitment as far as they could see, that if the county was able to transfer from the approved Plan B to a YMCA, that we might go forward. Because if we didn't get, even if we got an indication that it wasn't going to work, we wouldn't be here discussing it right now today. But we got an indication, and I asked Sean to find out from the judge, you know, is there a good chance that we could pull this off? And the indication was, in fact, I saw the judge subsequent to that, and he said, yes, they're very interested in seeing the Y go forward here if we can meet the time deadline of building the project. So anyhow, we had the discussions. We determined that we hope that BEDC board members would support a $700,000 funding, and we didn't really discuss how that, we discussed a little bit of how that might happen, but I leave that part open. But that's kind of the history of how we got where we are today, and that this point, I don't think we would have gotten here except that Sean said there was this opportunity for the YMCA to finance it, and then a light went off in my head and said, hey, I think there's a way to pull this off. I think we can swing the financing over a long enough period that it will fit into the city's budget, and that's yet to be determined tomorrow. But also, if we can approve this tonight on the BEDC side, at least we can bring that back, that BEDC supports the project to the tune of X dollars, and tonight we need to determine what X dollars is. And I think then the next step is the city council meeting tomorrow to make the presentation. And I've got some information that I've put together, and you might have looked at it in the package for tomorrow, that I hope that the city will be able to see fit to fund the other part of it.
Can I respond,
Go ahead.
Chair?
Yeah, yes, please.
Well, then I may have been presumed with it when talking to Sean. When you mentioned that he was aware, and I'm assuming from the people in Austin with the Y, that there was availability to, you're talking about that $2.5 million. And that's where I'm getting at. Was Mike made aware of that particular fact, that he knew when he talked to you about that money being available, that we needed $2.5 million outside the 1.6 to maybe make it work? Was he aware, or were you aware? Were you aware?
Yeah,
Okay.
to some degree, yes.
Okay. So, okay. But it's
And you know, I didn't discuss all the pieces, but part of it is the $1.6 million grant. Part of it is $2.5 million from the city. The other part I didn't even talk about was that the Y is going to invest $2.5 million of their own funds. And in the end, what the proposal is that the city will own this facility, that it will be leased to the Y for $1 a year for 20 years. They'll have a 20-year commitment from the city to operate this Y facility, and hopefully it will go on beyond that, but so that they know that their money is going to be amortized over a long period of time. But that would set the wheels in motion to get a Y facility. They would operate the facility. The city would not pay the operational costs. They wouldn't be cleaning it. They wouldn't be mowing it. They wouldn't be paying the electric bill. They wouldn't be staffing it. That the money that would be spent would be for the facility that the city would own, and the Y would end up operating this facility. They would charge fees. They would collect the fees. Their operating costs would come out of their fees. BEDC would have no additional financial obligation to this project beyond the commitment that we might make tonight.
well, you and I are fairly close on how we're trying to get there, but we're not on the same page.
Okay?
And what I'm saying is that I've been pretty consistent in saying that, and the reason we never moved forward back in September because of having a bond election, whether it was in November or this May, was because I know people felt that if it went out for a bond election, it wouldn't pass, number one, okay? And then, so that's okay. But then I always was consistent and said if it had to come out of any money, I thought BEDC was the people that you probably look to. I've always been consistent with that. I've supported the mayor's report started in August in a workshop that we had, that after that 1.6 million of the HUD money, we wouldn't spend any more city money. And that's where my concern lies, that if we spend any more general fund dollars into this project, that I thought it was wrong on the citizens of Bastrop to basically be asked to put $4.2 million into a project like this. Now, BEDC, and I hope when we get to our part of what we want to pay, the BEDC leaves it open and says they may want to go above the $700,000 to do more funding for this project, because I'm gonna support what you have on paper tonight, and I hope it's left open, because we're gonna have a discussion tomorrow night where you may have to come back.
Well, you know, I would throw that out to the other board members. You know, we have a substantial fund balance at this point, plus we have the ability to do financing through the Y if we want to. I would throw it back at the other board members. The number that was arrived at was, I guess, fairly arbitrary. We just said, hey, what if we did this split? We didn't have a formula, there was no magic here, and I would certainly, I don't have an issue if the board here wants to participate to a higher level on our part, BEDC's part. I throw that out and ask for input.
I would say, I'm going to say this. First of all, Gary and I think we'll have the conversation that you alluded to tomorrow night. Gary and I have signed off on a plan that's in the city council packet. It anticipated $700,000 from somewhere, and I didn't know what he was talking about because he was very, very careful. I see from the minutes why he was careful not to talk to me about it. I didn't know where that $700,000 was coming from until I saw the packet for this meeting, or the agenda, and I read the report about this. So I think that I think it's fine if the EDC kicks this off. I mean, if this board kicks this off and says to the council, which meets the day after we do here, we would like to participate at some level in making this work. I've read what Sean wrote about how it has an impact on economic development, because that was my first question. Is it really legitimate for the EDC to be doing this? And I think he's made a pretty good case about that. I think the partnership between EDC and the city is vital. And I'm kind of grateful on this point that it's kicked off by EDC, that it's not the city coming, because that's the first thing I got hit with when first day I was on this board was, what's the city asking us for? Well, it's not, that's a bad way to phrase it. What are we doing together? At this point, the EDC is kicking it off and saying, if we can do something, whatever, here, maybe it makes it possible for the council to make a decision that the council may make tomorrow night. So I'm also enthusiastic with my mayor's hat on that the council has said repeatedly, our first choice is the Y for this $1.6 million. But we couldn't figure out a way to find the extra money. And Willie and I can have a debate about what I said and didn't say tomorrow night, but the conversations that Gary mentioned, just brand new, fresh information that I think allow us to think really seriously about this. My last two comments are, number one, I don't understand why we wouldn't try to borrow whatever money that EDC is going to put in here at no interest for 20 years from the Y, instead of putting as much money up front.
I don't think they're doing no interest.
That's what Gary and I talked about for the city.
Did you change it?
I mean, well, let me just say this: that we can ask, but the city's proposal, with not knowing, at least until now, not knowing where this extra $700,000 was coming from, was we were going to borrow money for 20 years at no interest from the Y.
No.
If that's
That was our understanding. Is that a correct
In the meeting, you
understanding?
said that you would have to finance it like that.
Yeah. Okay, just so you know, this piece of it is that what we were talking about, where this is now. So the funding is the 1.6 HUD, a combination from the DEC and the city of 2.5, WISE money of 2.5. That 2.5 that you guys were talking about, we would debt finance that on and we would pay that interest. For you guys, we would not charge that interest back. So our skin in the game, if you will, is not 2.5, but it would be more like 3.1 by the time our 10-year note is paid off for that portion of it.
But
So-
the effect of the city is a 0% loan.
That's absolutely correct.
Would that be true for what we're talking about here? Could we borrow the money for 20 years, get no % interest?
Yeah,
That's
when
what you just said.
Okay, so,
When we
I'm
look-
answering your question, so specifically.
Well, he answered it.
Okay, so so let me go back to what I was saying before you asked me that question. I've got two things to say. One is, if we're going to put some money up, I'd like to borrow it over 20 years for no interest from the Y. And second, whatever we decide tonight, if we decide to move forward, it needs to be in the context of having a meeting probably fairly soon, given the circumstances, a couple of weeks or whatever. We have and it could be a joint thing with the city, if the city seems interested in this, the council, to have a public hearing where we get plenty of announcement and get lots of folks to come tell us what they think about this, because it's a very different kind of proposal than we've ever had before, I think. And I'm done.
Can I, Mayor, Chairman, can I answer the mayor's?
Sure.
Some of the mayor's comments?
Please.
And my deal was, excuse me? My deal was, if there was a ground to reach between the 700,000 and the 1 point something that they were asking from the city, because in that meeting, and I have the minutes right here, and in the meeting, everybody on the council, I believe, was supportive of the comment that you made, that no more city funds were going to be made available to this project outside the 1.6. Now, I'm surprised that they keep coming back, speaking about people from the Y, saying they want involvement of city funds along with BDC funds. And I'm still shocked that we're still here in January, that they're still coming back and asking for that. I'm supportive of anything BDC wants to do, but, and I know some of us are going to argue this tomorrow about general fund dollars, and if it's a waste of us putting money in versus the money that in our project versus borrowing that money on 0% for 20 years, is that one, and I got that paper in here, in our retreat last year, nowhere in that 3 pages of the city council priorities was the Y listed as a top priority for the city of Bastrop. Granted, I don't have a problem, we need it. It's one of those, everybody thinks it's one of those issues or one of those quality of life issues we need. I'm not here to argue that, okay? But here's my deal, and that's why I don't want to use general fund dollars or property tax dollars anywhere from the city of Bastrop, because if it's not a top priority, and I don't think it's above streets here in the city of Bastrop, if we got that kind of money to spend for 20 years, why aren't we putting it in the streets? And that's why I'm asking if the BEDC would look a little further than what you see committed on the paper tonight.
I'm not arguing that.
But that's just my argument, because I just don't think that it's a priority. The Y is a priority more than the streets.
What level?
But we talk about that tomorrow. This
What
is not.
level do you think BEDC? I'm asked because I just put the question out there, and I haven't heard one response of whether 700,000 or 500,000 or $1.5 million is a fair number for BEDC.
It's first, to answer the first comment, it's unfair to ask what a fair number is when we don't know what that, you're asking what is a substantial number without knowing what the end result is. Secondly, the concern of if you're paying the debt service, and it's truly not a zero interest loan, if negotiations or something were to break down, EDC or the city would assume responsibility for the interest on those loans, correct?
No, not necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
We have, 8 different physical properties that the bank would leverage, not this building, because we don't own it, and we wouldn't own it in the first place.
Yeah.
So we couldn't use that for debt collateral.
Okay.
And obviously, I wouldn't support any kind of a contract that didn't have, lawyer.
Sure, I just wanted to make sure I
Write
understood
down that
that.
wasn't gonna
Because,
happen.
you have one hand talking 0% and one saying, well, you're paying the
Well,
debt service. I just wanted to make sure
the
that.
YMCA would incur costs, the financing.
Sure.
We wouldn't. They're not charging us with that. So, obviously, that's their cost. It's going into a general cost for all the facilities that you operate, I'm assuming. I don't know if it's a YMCA budgeted item for debt service generally, or if you cost it out of my facility or whatever you do, but it doesn't matter. It's your cost, one way or the other. You're not passing that cost along to us. We know what our costs are. It's a zero if we finance it and we use the $2.5 million. We don't have financing costs. You've got some costs, but we don't.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question of you?
Certainly.
I think the time is now to find out what the total cost tonight of their project is before we go further, whether it's $5 million, $6 million, $7 million, or $8 million, because I've never got a true number in all the meetings that we have, and I think before we make a decision tonight and tomorrow night, I think the city needs to know.
Well, let me say that is kind of where I came into this meeting tonight, just to understand the full spectrum. I've been to several meetings with you guys over the last year or so. You know, toured your facilities, I've seen the operation, everything's extremely impressive. Now we're just down to the money part of it now, and I think that we all understand the value, and as Sean has pointed out in his write-up, you know, there are a lot of benefits to this, not just financial, you know, and economic, but social as well. And so, you know, I think now what we need to know on our board is, you know, what is the big picture financially? I know we bandied around a lot of dollars and, you know, what those dollars are going to be used for, and what the need is, and what the infrastructure costs are, and the land costs, and so on and so forth. But I think that what we really need to know now is where's the cost commitments, and what are those costs, and how do we participate, if we participate, and then obviously what the city's willing to do, if anything, over above the 1.6 million, which I was a little surprised by that, but now that you really brought it up, I think I recall, you know, those conversations at one point. So anyway, I think we just need the big picture, understand what it is, and then see if we want to, how we want to participate.
Well, and I want to roll it back a minute. For the EDC, technically, we've had this a month. Some of us have heard bits and pieces, but it's really new to us.
3 days for most of us.
Yeah, so coming in and saying we want all this money right now for a project is a little iffy. Big picture, I mean, is this building, is this the Parks and Recreation future of Bastrop? Is this becoming the thing? The city's putting a lot of money potentially into one little thing. We have a lot of exciting projects coming up that are about job development. Is this it? Is this what we should be doing? And we're giving a lot of money, when you look at our budget, to the city for city projects. I mean, like $140,000 for cleaning the highway frontage. We've got all sorts of weird little line items that go to the city. And when we were looking at the budget, this last time, when we were doing the budget for this year, we had like $60,000 left at the end of our budget, and we're supposed to come up with $700,000. I know we've got money in the bank right now because we kind of pulled it back and said, let's save it for some really good job creation type projects. Is this it?
Well, you know, my comment to that would be, when you try to recruit a major business to a community, one of the big issues, because I've been a developer of businesses, several businesses right here in Bastrop, to draw people to this town, there are quality of life things that you can have that will set you apart from anybody else. And I guess I would go back to James and ask, is there another town in the entire state of Texas that would have a Y, this size of Bastrop, that would have a Y as nice or complete as this facility would be?
Currently, you find
very few.
That's because they can't afford it. And the question is, can we?
well.
And-
If you look, I don't, you know, can I really just talk? I want you guys have been well informed. I congratulate you all for your due diligence, what you're doing. None of these decisions are easy, but I want to make sure people understand that we started this process 5 years ago, 5+ years ago. We're not coming to you guys and saying, we're Johnny-come-latelys. We've been serving this community, doing the best job that we can, at a cost, at a substantial cost, of in excess of $500,000. Now, we believe our programs and what we offer do make a difference in the community. The path forward for us is a physical building for viability, because we can't sustain this over the course of the long term. Mike can give you the numbers. If the city of Bastrop opened their own rec department, what that expense would be to you. It would be far greater than what we're coming with our proposal. Trust me, far greater. Because we have these examples where we went to the city, we've done these partnerships. We will save you guys a lot of money in the long run having us do this work versus yourself. But that's, besides that, I want to talk about what Gary says. What are the quality of life issues? What's important? We believe that the health and wellness and activities for kids and the value-based programs that we bring to a community make the community a stronger place. And in the end, I know streets are important. I know public safety is important. But the quality of life and what issues you guys are facing in this community are not going to go away. And you guys do not rank very well when it comes to obesity ranking in the state of Texas. And Texas doesn't rank very well as it relates to the rest of our country. Now, I'm proud to live in Texas, but those I'm not proud of. We can do better. And I think that we have an opportunity to do something special. It's hard decisions. We're not trying to tell you what your jobs are, but when it comes to this type of collaboration and this partnership where everybody has some skin in this game, I think that we can put this together.
Well, what the city's looking at, I don't know, but in a way, what we're doing is outsourcing our recreation. And when we go, oh gosh, it's so terrible, we don't have anything, right or wrong, we are close to Austin. We have parks, we have lakes, we are 30 minutes away from almost everything, which a lot of small communities don't have. And we're not a very big community. I'm not against this, but this is big. Are we big enough to do something like this? And I question if the EDC with our, if this is the best use of our funds right now.
Well, let me address is the community big enough to support a YMCA? We've done our due diligence as well, and we've done our market study, and this is not our first rodeo. We know what the population size is. We also look at what your growth is going to be, and it's not going down. In fact, all predictions it says that you guys are going to be the next hot spot of growth in the greater Austin area. I think that's true. One, you have a beautiful town. You have a quality of life that is really unique and special. People come out here and they support this community every time there is something major advancement that they want to do. We look at that as something that we want to be part of. The other thing, as far as your job growth is concerned, half of what we do, even more so, is goes to salaries. So we anticipate this in 5 years to be in about a $1.5 million operation. So that means $750,000 plus is going to salaries. Is that substantial? I don't know, but I will tell you what is. Youth employment is very big in the YMCA. In fact, we're the first jobs for a lot of young adults. That's important, I think. My first job was a lifeguard.
I know, we talked about that. My first job was as a lifeguard at the Y. So,
Well,
When you go over
I was expecting that to come out, so thank you.
I would have brought that up. Would you go over the scope of the project?
Yes, we're looking at a 25,000, in fact, we have some stuff, 25,000 square foot facility. We're looking at the total project cost of about $6.6 million. That equates to about $250 a square foot. So if there's anybody in construction in the room, that's a pretty good budget. It's not, you're not going to get, the Rolls Royce, but you're not going to get a cheap building by any stretch of the imagination. We think that we can meet the timelines. We are building a building that would be expandable. So we know as you guys grow and the opportunities present themselves, we've got a building that we can expand, a bigger gym, a bigger natatorium, bigger workout space, so we can keep going at this site.
is there a monetary contribution expected from your partner on this that you're showing on this plan, conceptual design?
Will there be? Yes. Not for construction, for operation. Oh, those are two, you mean the building itself? Yeah. No, those would be, it would be done in a contractual way that said you could build off of this, but the two projects would be separate accounting. But combined together so we would share an entrance and be able to have a model that is really the health care wellness model that you're seeing, the innovative approach that you're seeing around the country. But one's not contingent on the other necessarily. Now, I will say, I think that your executive director at the EDC did a very good job of writing this up.
Yes,
Because you
he
do
did.
not want to commit $700,000 to a project that you're not sure would, because there's another partner to make it. the way that's written up, not a dime goes out until it's finished, from how I read that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's a pretty good insurance policy on this point.
Sir, let me ask you a question if I could, and I'm just jotting down numbers of the things passed out. With your commitment of $2.5 million from the 1.6 HUD money, you're sitting at 4.1, so you're basically needing $2.5 million more, of which you've asked the BDC to participate $700,000, so that leaves you $1.8 million short. So combining the three numbers outside your 2.5, you're asking the city of Bastrop to commit $4.1 million to this project. Is that pretty close?
We're asking the 1.6, and we're asking for the 1.8, so you are correct. Now, what we're looking at, and we've been trying to do this in a different way, knowing that that money is not available up front. Now, it's been a commitment of the city of Bastrop for $40,000 per year to help the YMCA. Now, using Mike's numbers, not ours, he anticipates that if you did the 6,000 square foot building, it would be about a $60,000 a year cost to the city to operate that building. So when you combine those two, and if you look at a 20-year note, at that 1.8 with no interest, that's actually not a bad deal.
Well, I mean, and you may make a point on that, but we're getting back into general fund dollars, which I've never supported from the beginning. I've always said, if we went where we're at tonight with the EDC, that's a different story.
I know.
But, you know, I just can't in good faith say, I want to commit general fund dollars, and I'm talking about dollars that come from people's property taxes,
Right.
to go in and fund a project, a worthwhile project, that's not a high priority on the city council's list in our last retreat over improving our streets. Now, I will say, to answer his deal, I'll challenge you, other than not having a Y in here, there's not many other cities you can go around 8,000 people that have a library, a convention center, a performing arts theater, and a potential art center across the street in a town of 8,000. So we've got a lot of things to offer people when they come, and not including the Y yet, but
No, without a doubt, but the wine would definitely be some icing on the cake.
yeah, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that, you know, I didn't want you to leave here thinking that we didn't have anything other than what you wanted to bring to life. But we have a lot of nice.
I'll just say one more thing, and then I'll end and shut up, I promise. But as much as you guys take the fiduciary responsibility of this city, and I congratulate you 100% on that, we fight very hard to make sure that those services that we offer, because we know they make a difference in people's lives, we do the same thing. So I respect what you're saying, and hopefully you'll see that we bring some passion, and I think together we can do it.
Thank you. Joe?
Willie, where I get to, and the other board members and the public, where I get to on this deal is that in the beginning, when I first talked to Martha about it, I did not think that this city could afford to build or have the scope of the project that these folks are talking about. And I wasn't convinced it was a doable deal until Gary Schiff put forth the concept we've been talking about here tonight. And where I finally get to is, and I understand exactly what you're saying about spending general fund dollars for things that are perhaps more important than this Y facility. But where I finally get to is it's about cash going out one way or the other. If we do Plan B, if we build our own standalone 6,000 square foot facility, and if we continue to fund a Y presence here in the form of a staff, then over 20 years, we're going to spend $2 million. It's $100,000 a year for 20 years. What the Y is proposing is that they advance in essence, $1.8 million of city money, that they advance it, and that the city then, over time, pays, if you do the math, $90,000 a year to pay back that money. So it's cash going out no matter what happens. And so the decision-making in my mind is, what does the community get in the end? Do we have something that is better for all of us with a $6.6 million Y facility? Are we better off with that, or are we better off with the 6,000 square foot facility that can be used?
I'd go even further, and that is that if you don't want to make a commitment of the taxpayers' ad valorem tax money toward this project, or toward anything that's not on Willie's list of priorities from last year, the city should turn away the $1.6 million. That would be the answer, because then you would not have the liability to maintain that facility. And then you'd be back to just supporting the Y for $40,000 a year. And the question is even that viable? Because they're losing money. There's no facility there to operate a Y, and we'll probably end up even losing that. But I think the argument really is, if you're going to spend taxpayer money or not spend taxpayer money, if you're not going to spend the money, you don't even build the $1.6 million facility, because it has attached to it a $60,000 a year obligation to maintain that building, to staff and maintain it, or just to sit and park it there and not use a building you just built, except if you need a shelter, and then it probably won't work because you haven't maintained it. So you just turn it back.
But that is a council policy decision that you all
Right,
are gonna have
that
to
will
make
come
at
up
this
tomorrow.
point.
We've already made the decision about Plan B.
What we have before us tonight as the board of the BEDC is whether or not we want to approve a minimum of $700,000 that would finally get funded if all this other stuff works. I mean, that's what's before us tonight.
Jumpstarting the process.
Yeah.
I have something that.
We've got
Yeah, we're
Carlos, did you want to say something?
Yes, I can wait.
Well, one of the things, and it was a segue probably to what you're going to say, which is, and this really gets more to council. I mean, in the big picture, we just got this. We're asked to put a lot of money in it. It'll be the council decision ultimately on which way they go. Has the council looked at all the options? And I know I had one citizen say that there were some options that tied in some other ideas, and I don't know.
Well, let me answer your question. I mean, what the council has done is said for 6 or 8 months or maybe longer that we were not going to waste the $1.6 million from HUD. We were going to spend it on something. That our first priority was the Y, and that our backup plan would be for Mike to come up with a $1.6 million building that we could get built without spending another nickel on it. We never talked about what Gary has discovered, and it should have been obvious. We never talked about the fact that there were going to be some continuing costs to maintain that operation to make it work. So that's where the city is, and we're flat at that point. We have an agenda item presented by Gary and me that's in the packet that will come up tomorrow night. That is it from the city.
To echo what Joe said, whether or not the city decides to go one way or the other, that's not our charge.
That is correct.
So our charge is from a standpoint of if we want to contribute to whatever charge they want to go at the end of the day. One thing I hear, I've heard for the last, 5 years, that I've been living here is that the city is committed to the Y at some level. at some level, where it be just as it stands today, some future. So that part is not going away. So the one question I have is from an EDC standpoint, and Sean, you did a good job of outlining those bullet points. One thing that I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. We are would be contributing a large amount of sum of cash to a entity. We just have to make sure that they continue to hit the bullet points as outlined in the EDC. Because we have to be fair to all other business owners, local, that offer some of the same services that the Y could potentially offer. And we have to be prepared for those businesses to come to here and say, you supported this program, I offer a similar program with my business, I need your help. That, I just want to make sure that we all think about that as an EDC. That's our mission, our EDC, we have to be prepared for that. And so I'm saying I agree with that, I just want to make sure we all are on the same page and know that if we contribute to that, that's out there.
Well, we've been through that on many occasions, you know, for whatever reason or another, but that's part of it. That's definitely part of it.
You know,
Can I offer something?
Sure.
And so the bottom line, so we can wrap this up now, we're basically $2.5 million short of coming up with some money to figure out how to continue to move forward. You know, as a compromise, you know, will they commit anymore, or that's their level, but, you know, we at one point said that this is all we're gonna commit, but yet we're being asked, and we've gone above that, so, is there would you ask me what that level might be earlier about what we'd be able to contribute? I think if there was a deal where they would contribute a little more, we contribute a little more, and then ask them to go out and raise the money, and but it gets me, I'm almost afraid to say this, but I think the reason we're sitting here today is that they don't have the ability to go out and raise any more money. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but, you know, I'm willing to compromise. If they're willing to up their ante from 2.5, say to 3, I'm willing for us to up our ante that we're asking for tonight to go up and try to meet that goal.
Is that a possibility?
Well, we've been looking at a whole bunch of different possibilities, and I think that, you know, as you stated, this is not where this started. This is not what our first proposal looked like by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I think that's okay, because big projects and big things that you're trying to do and stretch, that's a process. It's never an easy one either. Now, when we look at what we've invested in this community already, plus the 2.5, plus the interest that we're going to absorb, we're at your level with the 1.6. Because that's going to be over $500,000 in the interest that we're going to absorb on this thing. We've got the 2.5 plus our operating expense that we've already lost. And I think it's important to note that we didn't run away from this community one bit, and when the state park pool was going to close, we stepped up, and we'll continue to do that. So I think that we've struck what I would consider a pretty fair deal. And I think that when we try to put something together, I think that we're leaving plenty on the table, and so are you guys. And we both are serving for the same reason, and that is to make this community a better place.
And Carlos? Carlos, you have a comment?
Yes, appreciated the opportunity to speak. I am on record as supporting the Y. I'm also on record as asking the city to support recreation. We need recreation in this community. There's no question about that. Currently, this city, with all of these amenities that we have and all these different things that we have, we do not have a gymnasium where kids can go play in open ball. We do not have that in this community. So we need recreation in this community. concern that I have tonight is that the EDC continues to be the agency that the city continues to lean on for funding. EDC, in my opinion, is in the business of creating jobs. I was on the board up until 2 months ago. Up until 2 months ago, this was not a priority, a major priority of the EDC as I understood it. The highway, the water issue, Main Street project, the Arts Guild. If you take a look at the EDC's budget, substantial amount of money go into this project for the city and that project for the city, all of them under the umbrella of this is what we need to make this place a better place. What we need today is jobs. We have to have jobs. Period. When the business comes to the EDC, we're going to spend X amount of dollars. You get X amount of benefits for that investment, right? How many jobs is this project going to create? This project is a city project. Recreation is a city project. If the city wants the Y, the city needs to step up and get the Y. My tax dollars are coming into this organization, and I need them focused on jobs and job creation. Period. And that's how I see it. Now, tomorrow night in the same chambers, we're going to have another discussion. Yes, we need recreation. I've had many discussions with the Y. The Y is that bridge to get us from this point to the point where this city can afford to have a recreation department. Right? If they can give us a commitment that they are going to handle these certain programs for a certain period of time, and they are going to be your mechanism, the city's mechanism for a recreation department, I am all over it. That's what we need. But we need to stop the city from leaning against this budget and saying, we just need dollars here and dollars there. It has to stop, in my opinion. And this board needs to focus on jobs, and that's my opinion.
I want to encourage everyone to look at go on the website if you haven't done so, to look at the packet for the meeting tomorrow night and read the proposal that Gary and I have presented that outlines that answers some of Carlos's questions in terms of the proposal is to authorize Mike to go talk to the Y about some stuff that's real important. You know, it's no slam dunk about anything. But I'm ready to make a motion if you'll hear it.
Can I make one more comment? I just didn't quite understand his comment about whether jobs, number one, was the most important thing, or recreation in the city. And to that point, I'm going to ask him if there's jobs, is he confident that spending $4.2 million of city funds, are those a job he's looking for that kind of investment? That's my question to him. Talking to you, Carlos. I'm talking to you. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm asking you, the jobs that you're talking about we need here in the city, are you confident spending $4.2 million of city funds are the jobs that you're looking for by creating a YMCA building?
How many full-time jobs are they going to create?
I don't know. I'm asking you, was it number one, was your commitment to jobs or recreation here in the city?
I believe we can have both.
Okay, so my point still is, but by spending $4.2 million with the Y on this project, are those the jobs that you're looking for that kind of investment from the city to the Y?
Well, they have not stated what type of jobs they're going to have. They are part-time jobs.
So in other words, you commit that money without knowing what you just said?
I couldn't do it.
Okay, you answered my question.
Ken, before you make a motion, is this something we must vote on? Can we?
That's my point would be no.
Thank you.
But I don't want to ask us to vote on something. Are you ready? I move that we
authorize our executive director and our chair to talk to the city manager and the mayor about the fact that we have a pretty good interest in partnering with the city in terms of creating the resources necessary to build a Y building. And that we're not sure, what the level is or the structure or what our requirements might be. But that we invite them to ask the city council to hold a joint workshop meeting between the EDC board and the city council and try to get as many people from the city or the community as we can out to tell us what they think and to vet it completely with the public. Something brand new for the city of Bastrop, spending money this way. And for us after that to have an opportunity to talk among ourselves and to come back as our separate boards and figure out where we're going.
Any other discussion on that motion?
Or is there a second? If there's no second, let's do something
So I can
else.
ask a question. I'm gonna second that so I can ask a question.
Second, and then we get you and we have a.
Thanks for seconding what you got to say.
No, I would just say that let's keep a steady deal now on the time frame, and we don't continuously drag this down the road, because there are time issues. Is if we're fortunate to move on, you got an architect that you got to bring in and do plans and everything, and we just and to meet that September 17 deadline that Mike talked about earlier, we can't keep dragging this out.
And one of the instructions that you gave in December was to come up with a timeline, which I'll have tomorrow night.
Okay, and if we were to have a conversation with the Y, we'd have to figure out, the Y's timeline, that they could guarantee they'd have that building. You got to start backwards and work up to the present. So, that might be the deal breaker there. I don't know. That's obviously critical. The HUD not pulling the plug on us, and a lot of things are critical. And I agree with you that needs to be moved. We need to move expeditiously. And I'm thinking a couple of weeks. But
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
We had talked about December 31st being the drop dead date, and now that's been extended somehow.
Let me tell you what the judge told me, and I'll
Okay.
let Shauna answer.
And you probably said it earlier.
Well, let me repeat it. I asked the judge, because there had been some conversation about the what came up at our last meeting. We voted to do Plan B, and James came and talked, and so I asked the judge. I said, okay, we're meeting our obligation to you. We're going to build this building like we said we're going to build it. We're going to deliverable to you from Mike by the 31st of December, which is exactly what you told us to do. And we did it, and Mike's done it. He's honored that. He's worked himself down to do it. And I said, what if, now that we've got Plan B, and that's absolutely rock solid, what happens if we go to something different, something expanded, maybe something like with the Y? Can we still submit that? He says, I don't know when the HUD or the GLO might pull the plug on this deal and say no, but I will work with you as long as I can, and I'll be as open, because all I want is what the city of Bastrop wants, and that it contain the ingredients that the grant requires.
Okay.
So, he was real clear with me, and I one of the things that I've said and I've thought about is, the Y's running a risk, and the city's running a risk, and the EDC's running a risk of spending some time and energy on something that might be beyond our control to make it happen, no matter what we agree to. But I think that, as Willie said, the sooner we move, the better we are for that reason. Is that clear?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I think I'm quoting the judge.
And I would add that I believe we're already working in a negative time frame. That I know what it takes, what it takes to build a building. To try to build a building in less than 2 years from right now, in 18, 19 months, a 25,000 square foot facility that has all the swimming pool. The complexities of this project, when you spend $200 and something a square foot for space, there's a lot of infrastructure there. It takes a long time to build a building like that.
A long time to plan it.
And a long time to design and plan it. That's absolutely right. If we don't make a decision, I'm not saying it won't happen. If we don't make a decision, if we're wishy-washy enough to just push this down the road like a bunch of bureaucrats, and this thing, we lose the opportunity, and we end up building a $1.6 million, 6,000 square foot facility that over 20 years costs us exactly the same, or actually costs us more than building a Y, everybody here is going to be highly criticized by the community for not taking action and getting something done. I mean, at the beginning of this year, I heard from Willie that this wasn't a priority. Well, it wasn't a priority because we didn't know we had a $1.6 million grant coming. The $1.6 million grant is an opportunity that we, will not see in our tenures here
Yeah, but
again.
look what that free money is, okay, free money is getting real expensive
Yeah,
here.
but I'm saying the council's already accepted that free money with the obligation that comes along with it of running it, that facility. So if you're gonna build it, I'm saying the option here, and this is not your choice, but the council's choice will be just give the money back. We don't want that we don't want that liability. We don't want to spend $60,000 a year plus the 40 that we're already spending. If we don't want to spend $100,000 a year going forward on a new, quote, small recreation facility and YMCA person, if we don't want to do that, you give the money back to HUD and say, go away. I don't want that liability.
I want to make sure I understand. So tomorrow night, the city is going to decide if they want to do Plan A or Plan B with that grant money.
We don't know what they're going to do. We have a proposal on the agenda.
To decide that.
We have a proposal on the agenda to do that with some $700,000, which I didn't know was coming from, that might be possibly to get here. Willie's suggested maybe we can get it some other place. Gary's worked out a good plan, and we'll decide what to do with that. Who knows what we'll decide.
All right, but if I would like to see the $700,000 commitment tonight, even if tomorrow the council might say, well, that's great, but we're not going to go for that. We don't think it's going to work. It would be good to have that commitment so that the council could possibly make a decision.
Well, we got a
to go
motion
forward.
in a second to vote on something else first.
Yeah, but this is a discussion.
Sure.
I'm discussing.
But unless somebody withdraws their motion, we're gonna vote on his motion.
And that's
And
fine.
but Gary's speaking against it.
I'm
so
just
that's
saying
okay.
I'm not voting for it. That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Well, I'm voting for it, so, we're sitting at we're at the
Okay.
same place.
Well, do you want to summarize your motion?
I'll try
Because that's so
again.
long
I know
ago.
you've got it on the tape, but the intent of my motion is to authorize Steve and Sean to talk to the mayor and the city manager with the understanding that this board is very, very interested in this proposal. But would like this, if the city decides to move ahead in any shape or form with a partnership with us and the Y, that we have a joint meeting that will be a workshop meeting with both boards posted, both the board and the council posted, and we'll try our best to lay out everything we can think of from both ends about what the details are, ask the public to give them a chance to tell us, what they think in every way they can do it, and that we then go back to our respective that we then talk afterwards, just set up a meeting, we can talk ourselves, and then we're free to go back to our respective boards and council and figure out what's next. And that we, and again, I would say the implication, I didn't say it, but is that it's got to be pretty soon. But I think that's pretty clear on everybody's mind.
We have a second?
I second that a while ago.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 You want to do opposed?
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
You're opposed. Okay.
To discussion?
I'm opposed to that motion.
He didn't speak to it, but he opposed it.
Does anybody else want to make an alternative motion?
Just pass.
Yeah, pass.
All right. I'll just say one thing, based on the public comment. And I've never viewed our relationship with the city as the city leaning on us for funding. I think that this board makes independent decisions based on what we feel. I'm sorry.
Louder.
Oh, I was just saying that I don't, from public comment, it was accounts that the city leans on us for funds. And I never looked at it that way. I always looked at it more as a partnership. And so I do take exception to that. And I think that we always try to do things in the best interest of economic development. And so, you know, I just want to go on record.
Let me go on record and say, I think I said some of that you're responding to, and you know that's a response to the first meeting I ran at this board, and I don't think it was the whole board speaking, and I'm probably a whole lot more sensitive about it than I need to be. So I hope if I ever say it again, just spit water at me, okay?
Steve, I appreciate your comments, because I know the projects that we've done together and the money that we brought into the city by partnering together.
Yeah. All right.
Some of the money got saved at my partner.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are we at 4.3?
Yes.
All right, so 4.3, go ahead.
So 4.3 is, I know David walked in after the meeting started. I believe he's still here. Okay, David, you're here. Okay. So we summarized the deal points from the December 14th meeting to David. He came back with a concern that kind of changes, I wouldn't say change, a concern that needs to be addressed. We've done some research into it, into his concern, and I know JC wants to visit with y'all in executive session on some attorney consultations. We've learned something related to mold and mildew in a building. You don't hire an engineer, you hire a scientist, is what we found out. And I can tell you that from what the engineers have told me is they don't like the scientists and the scientists don't like the engineers. We have found a couple of firms out of Austin that can come and do mold and mildew testing in the building, and unless I hear an objection from the board, I think that's something that we need to move forward with this week to satisfy David's concern, and I think it's something that we need to undertake on our behalf. I know David offered to cover the cost of it, but I think it's something that we need to, on our side of the deal, is take a look at it, have the scientists come out, do their testing, and provide us back those results. But because that was not something that had been discussed with the board at the December 14th meeting, and it was so close once we got David's response at the end of the year, that we wanted to visit with the board, make sure y'all were aware that as we did our research this week, getting ready for the meeting, that the testing should be somewhere between $750 and $1,000, depending upon how many samples that they take. And there's a couple firms, but I think I've got a good idea of who I'm leaning toward using. So unless there's an objection, we're going to move forward later this week. And
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
So when you do that, as far as bringing somebody in to do what you're talking about, and if you should find something, who's paying the cost to do the cleanup?
I think that's where we're going to have to come back and have some discussions about it. If there is, from the scientific testing, if there are results that need to be remediated, then that's a larger discussion.
I mean, I'd rather take what he put on paper, that he would pay for the expense of somebody to come in and test, and we clean up if we had an issue with it.
That's a neat point.
I think we need to know what we're dealing with.
It's a minor investment, and just, I mean, I deal with this stuff all the time.
I think it needs to be our expense,
It's our
whether.
expense.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I think it needs to be our expense either way, whether it's David purchasing the property or someone else down the road. We own the building, we gotta make sure it's fit to sell, we gotta clean it up.
And that's my point. If that's understood, I agree with what he wanted to do.
And
That's
you should have a check for asbestos while you're doing it.
Okay.
Good point.
Okay.
So unless there's any objection, it's well within my spending authority. We'll get it done and get it scheduled. Because it's scientists and not engineers, there's some different legal ramifications, I believe, and JC can go over those in executive session with y'all. But I think that's
Okay.
We'll move
So
forward.
we'll
Yeah.
Move forward with that. All right.
Sorry. It was Friday at 5 o'clock when I figured this out.
All right, 4.4.
Well, the mayor has left us. So the mayor asked for this to be on the agenda, and we provided a kind of a backup memo to this within the packet. The mayor asked the BEDC board, or is asking the BEDC board to consider marketing an on-site hotel at the convention center across the street. And there's basically two paths forward. The BEDC offering to the council to do that, or at some later date, the council asking the BEDC to do that. In doing a lot of research on this over since I've been here in April, we were asked to test fit a hotel on the site across the street, and we had that done, and a suitable sized hotel for our convention center would fit, and the parking requirements for the hotel would be met separate from the convention center parking lot. There still would probably be a joint use agreement just for sake of them sharing a parking lot or having an adjoining parking lot. First and foremost, when we visited with developers that specialize in this type of product, is some type of feasibility study by 3 to 4 firms that specialize in this marketing. And we know some folks that can point us in the right direction of who those 3 to 4 folks are that work in Texas and work in these types of facilities. Second to that, the feedback that we've gotten is once the results of that study are in, it is engaging an engineering firm, a consultant that can help us develop a master plan and an RFP to go to the street and make it fair to all concerned that, hey, we're interested in this, here's what the feasibility study says, here's what the land use and constraints are. If you're interested, send us back a proposal of what that looks like. Once that occurs, there may be responses, there may not be responses. Those are evaluated, and either one's accepted or they're all rejected or none come in. Then really marketing to individual developers is when the process of doing that and identifying those. And we know several that may have interest individually that may not want to participate in the RFP, but they may also want to participate in the RFP. And so where we're at is the mayor's asked for this on the board's agenda, and that's kind of the process as we as staff see it in the timeline as it lays out. We could find somebody 3 months from now after the study's done and we've done a master plan, or 6 months after that's all complete, or it could be 2.5, 3, 4, 5 years before we find somebody. But without the feasibility study and a master plan for development, it's going to be very difficult to market.
So you're going to establish a budget for this, or you're going to ask for proposals, right?
Yeah, if this board wants to undertake this project, we need to ask the council for permission, number one. And then if the council gives us permission, then we'll lay out a budget and a timeline and all of the steps involved for getting from point A to point B to come back to the board and go, this is what it's going to take.
So Mayor, do y'all have that on your agenda to?
No, my question is, I like the idea of the generating this if the board agrees. I mean, it'd be an initiative on our part. You know, we've talked about it. We've seen Mike's the council had Mike commission a report, study about the convention center, and one of the things that was mentioned in there was if I'm not mistaken, Mike, that hotel would be pretty key, that a lot of convention centers like ours prosper when they have a hotel connected with them. I think that the council's not gone into any depth about it. I think the only question I've got is this is, we do a lot of talking about tourism as an industry here. In the community. I'm not sure we talk about that much at the EDC. If that's a factor, I don't want to do this just because the city council has not been able to figure out how to sell more tickets over at the convention center. I want to do this because it is a legitimate enterprise that will make Bastrop a more prosperous community, that it will increase our economic development. I don't know if that's correct or not. So my starting point is, I think that's the first question. It's not to do the study, but to find out, do we want to, is this something that's on our interest line?
I don't think it falls within the BEDC purview. If you get back to what Carlos is talking about, you know, how does this create jobs or, tourism is not.
It's not tourism we're talking about here. When you turn it into a hotel convention center, you open a huge market, and it's worth looking at.
Is it the BEDC's purview though, or is it the city's purview? I'll go back to, this is one I really think is the city's purview. It's not BEDC's purview. Again, I'm speaking just for me.
Well, let me get in if I can. And the mayor's totally speaking, I guess, on a request from yourself, because I don't think.
This is strictly for me.
Exactly, because
I
don't think the council as a group is.
Haven't weighed in, except we've heard about a hotel.
But let me ask you this question before we go on further. That's all we can discuss it the other day. Are you talking about an on-site or something closely related to the city center?
We're talking about across the street.
Okay, just
Not be specifically, I'm talking about across the
Well,
street.
watch what you're asking for until you research everything associated with a convention center when you built it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Say that again?
Consider everything concerning that civic center before you make a request to do an on-site hotel next to the convention center, before you know all the facts about what was supposed to happen when that convention center was built.
Well, I would hope that'd be part of our study. If you know some information, why don't you tell us?
I mean, I wasn't aware of this, what you wanted to do on this, because I wasn't asked. But what I'm gonna tell you now
I mean,
is
I put it
that,
on the agenda.
what I'm gonna tell you now is that when that convention center was built, the rest of the room was supposed to be left for expansion of the civic center at one time. Now, if that's not gonna happen, then that's a discussion for the council to decide.
Well, maybe it does start.
And that's why I'm asking you, is it on-site or somewhere close to the civic center?
All I know is we had a report, a professional report, not a thought about the council years ago, but we had a professional report that said we need a hotel over there. I'm trying to follow up on that.
And I'm not arguing that, but when we talk about over there, do we mean something on-site or something close to the civic center? And that's what I'm trying to make sure we understand that.
Didn't I specify that site over there? I specified this site over there.
But what I'm saying though, if the council at the time when they built that civic center said specifically the rest of the property was supposed to be left for a future expansion of the civic center. Now, if you don't want to do that, now we need to come back to the council and say, is that still true today or not?
We need to find out why the council said that and what's about. Sure.
I wasn't there. But we can find out. I agree with you.
This is why we haven't undertaken this project.
That's not why we haven't undertaken it.
I just put it on the table.
We put it on the table without knowing all the facts.
Mayor, I
Well,
think.
wait a minute.
And I'm not talking, no, he brought it, he brought up the comment, and he said this is why, so I'm gonna assume he's saying he's blaming people before him. And if you wanted to bring it up to the board tonight, you should have did a little research on your own. Because I don't appreciate that comment.
What?
I don't appreciate his comment that that's why we haven't got there till before tonight.
What?
I know what he meant.
Can you explain what you said? I think Mr. Bell must have misunderstood.
No, I didn't misunderstand anything, Ken. You don't
I have
I don't
no-
need anybody explain anything to me.
When people asked us about the convention center and the on-site hotel, we knew that this, as staff, we knew this would be a very divisive issue between the BEDC and the city. And that's why we as staff have stayed arm's length away from it until it was requested by a board member of the BEDC.
Is that what you heard?
No, what I'm saying to him is if they knew, you brought this to him, first thing he should have done and called Mike and said, we're putting this on the agenda. Is there anything I need to know when I present this about what I just said about whether it's an on-site or something close to the convention center? That's my point. It's back to the communication deal again.
I misunderstood you. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
I think the issue should be agenda item for the council is what I think, and then the council, if it wants to defer back to BEDC, should defer back to BEDC, is my own personal opinion.
Are we needing a motion, or are we needing?
I'd like to hear what other people think. I just wanted to hear what people
Well,
thought.
I was
I
gonna
heard
ask-
from two people.
I was gonna ask a question for Sean. Sean, does this fall in the scope of what the staff feels?
Generally speaking, the way we perform economic development in Bastrop, if if the city asked us to go and market this, it would fall within our purview. It falls within our retail, quality of life. We're in touch with those developers on a daily basis.
It's an ancillary, but it's not a primary.
It's not, yeah. It's not what we do every single day, but and Mike is perfectly capable of doing it as well in his office. But it's what we're tasked with economic development-wise in the city, and it would fall within our purview. If the board blessed this and the council blessed it, we'd be perfectly capable of handling this.
And having a successful operation is one thing for everybody.
I don't disagree with that. I just think it needs to be placed in the right hands. And right now, I don't think BEDC's hands are the right hands.
I do think it's a good direction.
And that's why we provided both recommendations, because it either needs to go up to council and be blessed, or the council needs to ask us.
I think council needs to ask us.
I agree. I think it needs to be charged from council, and at that point, we can discuss what the options are.
Okay.
But I will tell y'all, if such a study is done, or such a marketing plan is done, it's going to morph over into what sort of incentives are going to be, have to be provided in order for a hotel to work on that site. It doesn't give the internal rate of return with a straight up deal. It's going to have to be incentivized somehow.
Do you remember, you and Kim remember anything I just said about the
Yeah, I was sitting here,
Yeah.
it's 8 years ago,
I know.
and I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't remember the sequencing of when we got that particular piece of
That was
property.
the last track we were.
Steve, I think I got my answer.
Okay.
Next.
Steve, I'm gonna ask to be excused because I'm sinking fast illness of some sort.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. All right,
Thank you, Joe.
4.5.
So it was requested consideration, discussion, possible action on working groups, task force, et cetera, for the BEDC. And so I provided a fairly lengthy memo, and there's no recommendation from staff at this point. When Carlos was on the board, he was working with us in one of our working groups, and part of the direction that we were headed with that working group was possibly formalizing it through board action. I think that project, that working group, has moved in a little bit different direction, and that's not something that is being requested today at this point. But we as staff form working groups, task forces, committees, internally, what we're referring to now as informal committees, informal working groups related around projects. We have toyed with the idea internally as staff of going, do we want to have formal committees related around the core areas of economic development? And we visited around, and the general consensus is if each one of you was assigned a committee to show up on, and there was 2 and 2 and 3, how long would there be interest in meeting as a committee? And then if we brought in community members to serve on those, what would it look like? And we as staff, or at least myself, I get hung up on the project side of what we do and the confidentiality around that. When you look at the marketing and recruiting committee, a lot of that recruiting effort is going to be confidential information that even if we had community members on that committee, they're not going to be able to participate in that because it violates that non-disclosure confidentiality with those companies. On the business retention and expansion, when we're looking at expansion projects, we're going to run into that same confidentiality issue. And so how much work is the committees really going to have of community members serving on them? The board has used periodically ad hoc committees, more recently a bylaw committee, and then they also took on the covenants and restrictions in the park as well. In that committee formed, it did its work, it reported back to the board took action, and it dissolved after that. And we're going to do a better job in our staff reports of when we're using.
That was by the board, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a formal committee by the board. We're going to do a better job in our staff reports, and when we have informal working groups, task forces that we're working with, that we as staff reach out to our partners, inform that we're letting y'all know what those informal groups look like.
Well, I think basically, Sean, if we have a need to form a subcommittee to study bylaws or, architectural controls, whatever the case may be, we appoint somebody from the board.
Would we do that?
Ask for volunteers.
Would we do that
and do it.
in a board meeting?
Yeah.
Be appointed by you or decided by the board?
Well, I
That's
think
what we've done
volunteer
in the past,
first.
yeah.
Can I-
Ask for volunteers and.
Can I ask, on the subject that we're dealing with when Carlos left the board, is this, his deal with he was working with the school on the technical aspects of, like, what was the guy that came and gave reports a couple times? I don't remember his name from the school. Is that kind of what we're talking about? So I guess I think we are talking about, but who's going to stay in touch with that group when they need somebody to talk to over here at our level?
Well, I think it would be a point person that,
Okay.
is appointed by the board to do that.
I just didn't want him to follow through what he started with the, communication with the school on that
Yeah.
far as a technical aspect of what Carlos and that guy were working on or working towards.
Yeah, those are all, that group there, it's all, outside of some of the outside associations, it's all staff level people meeting. It's us and Les Hudson and the school superintendent. It's Austin Community College's staff. It's industry and their representatives. It's the state of Texas and their Texas Workforce Center and their staff. It's the governor's office and their staff. It's all, that's an all staff level primarily outside of industry. Whenever we bring those agencies in, it's all staff level personnel in that meeting.
I think we can move on from there. I mean, is there any questions?
Yes, I have some questions. I think from reading Sean's report and talking to him that, I can see the last thing you said, that, if you're working on some staff stuff and you need some people from the community to try to figure stuff out, staff-wise, I think that makes a lot of sense. If we're having if we need a point person for something that Willie just asked about, well, I don't think we've got a point person. Well, what process do we go through to get that? And how do we stay alert to that? If we have board members involved in things, then how do we know and how do we have ownership of that? For example, how was this decision made to have Gary, Christie, and Joe at that meeting that you described about the why? And I mean, how do we know about that? I know you told me read your reports, but how does that kind of decision happen and so forth?
Well, we'd arranged, they'd asked for Steve, and then because of the type of facility that they were building, we asked for Christy because of her architectural and land planning skill set. And when Steve bowed out, we started down the checklist of board members. We asked Cam, and he wasn't available. We asked Gary and Joe Bill. And we were working our way down through you and Willie, and both of them responded yes. And so when we got to our maximum allowed to be in that meeting of 3, we stopped asking.
So there would be so that was a staff thing where you thought you needed board members present?
That is, when we get into those high-level meetings, and we really look at what your area of expertise is in those meetings, and we go, who's the best fit from the board to sit in on that meeting? And we look at it from that perspective first of who has the most knowledge that they bring to the table to be able to understand. We do it with site visits as well. Whenever we have a site visit coming to town and we need a board member, who's got the most expertise in that field that we can closely match up and put in the room with the company. It's not really anything arbitrary who's available. It comes into play a lot of times, but it's who's got the best expertise and going to understand what the company's saying. Because we get into some of these, especially that involve high-level engineering, that Gary's expertise as an engineer is as good as it gets on this board. When it comes to development, there's nobody better to put in the room than Steve. When it's finance, it's Joe Bill, Christie and her architectural and land planning comes along, and you and Willie both have your expertise as well from the municipal government and what y'all do. But we really look at it from who's the best fit to be in the room.
What's the difference between asking another architect in town or another engineer in town
to help you out when you talk about having staff people versus having board members?
We do when we can, but in some cases, it's the confidentiality of what we're dealing with the client that we've got to be able to, we have projects that we're under non-disclosure agreements with that we couldn't bring a community member in unless the company asked. And that's part of serving on the board. When that's not in play, Dan Hayes Clark has been invaluable to us on projects. Tracy Bratton at Bowman is a text away from answering any questions. That's how I figured out the difference between an engineer and a scientist. Was Tracy by text was able to explain all that to me and point me in the right direction. And so we do engage them when we need them in the community, and we ask for their expertise. And if we ever need to put business leaders in the room with a project, and we haven't had a project where we've been asked to do that, we've had business leaders call us and say, hey, we're more than happy. And we know some that we've worked with on things that we know we can put them in the room and they're going to present Bastrop in the most positive light. We sometimes want to control it a little bit, and so we always want to make sure we have the right people in the room.
Well, it's also the level of expertise you got to have. Like when we did the master plan, you don't just say, okay, Steve, what do you think about this? We had to actually create, from a professional engineer and land planner, all the different land uses that we wanted to experiment with and lay it out professionally for the board to take a look at and understand what we were trying to do in the end product. I mean, you can't just do that by, or if it's detailed architectural, Chris would be great to overview it, but it wouldn't be necessarily, it would not probably be in our best interest to have her go start doing plans for us,
Well, I'm not going to do that.
That's exactly what I was saying. Do we have any kind?
But
Sorry.
one thing I want to say, which is, as a fairly new member, sitting in on these discussions was so helpful, because so often we walk into a conversation that has been under the confidentiality, and it was kind of like, and you come in on the tail end of the conversation. So I would ask, even if there's only a specific one or two people that you're targeting, if you can accommodate another board member, at least ask or invite us and give us that option, because it is a great opportunity to sit in on those discussions.
So then when you share it with the majority of the group, there's that many more board members that have some level
background,
of that they can
idea
talk
what's
to the
going
others
on.
about.
Yeah.
Do we have any active, any kind of thing, committees or point persons or whatever that involve board members that are involved, that are going on right now?
Not really.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, we're to the Main Street program. I'm confused now. EDC project.
Updates.
My weekly report for last week is in the packet. We are going to try to continue to get these out on a weekly basis to y'all this year. So you'll see another one come out Friday afternoon that's updated through Friday of this week. But if y'all have any questions on
Is that posted on the website?
it is not.
And is this public information here?
Yes.
So why is that posted on the website?
This report is, but the weekly staff reports are not put up there.
Okay, so you're sending us something in the email that's not public information?
No, we make sure that the one that's coming in, no, sometimes in the weekly email report, there would be some project information in there that if it was requested and ORR was sent in, we would have it redacted. But that would be the limits of any redaction would be related to project information that was included in there.
I guess my question is, why isn't it on the website?
This one is, I mean, we can put every week's on there. I mean, I don't know how much interest there is in seeing it on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think the idea is making it available to the public and transparency and all that, but maybe I'm missing something here. I mean, Mike, can you?
Basically a summary.
I do my report each and every 2 weeks. I have several people tell me I look forward to read my report now. It's about usually 10 to 15 pages. But, so
I think it was 61 this time.
yeah, it was pretty long.
I got a nice nap out of it.
Because I hit print and I went, God, what did I just do?
I went and read the highlights. I'm going to go back and read the rest of it.
We City's got a lot going on.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I don't see how it could hurt to put it on the website, and I think it might help. If
Put
two
it on the
people read
website.
it, there's two people that are interested, then we have some other people that know what's going on.
It's available, so.
Yeah.
It's
I'll
really
post it.
exciting.
It changes a lot.
What are you gonna say?
I was just gonna ask, in those weekly reports, that I've seen, you are not putting anything that's common.
Occasionally at the end, there'll be some project updates in there that I'd have to go back and make sure that we weren't disclosing anything. But we can also remove that and do that completely separately too. And I don't have a problem putting it on the website. I mean, it's a couple clicks away. If that's what the board wants, we'll
I
make
just
it
wanna
happen.
make sure we are cautious
Can we do 5.2?
Yeah.
in the fact that, let's assume that someone reads a weekly report
Remember when you did that?
and just gonna use Gary, hey Gary, I missed my weekly report, and then you guys get it, can you send it to me? And he sends him his email, and that just happens to be one of the weeks that there's something that's
I'm gonna be crying if I can't.
I'm
confidential.
gonna say, you better be careful sending me something confidential on email. I mean,
Well, no, yeah, that's why I'm asking the
be
question.
very careful what goes out.
That's why I'm asking the question on those weekly reports. And now, if it's just this information, then absolutely, just let it rip.
Okay.
That's,
Okay, are we ready for 5.2?
No, Mike has a presentation.
that's,
I have it.
Well, technically, 5.2 is Main Street,
Oh, okay.
and Nancy's here.
yeah, it's not.
Can't she go?
Well, yeah, Mike's got one before that. I think
All right. Make sure you're back.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
And there should be a pass down.
I did have passed.
No wonder it doesn't make sense. I'm not halfway through it.
I was asked tonight to come down and
I'll do it.
and give an update on the BEDC Main Street project. But in reality, I think what needs to happen, and I'll talk a little bit about tonight, is the LED improvements and the BEDC Main Street project. Because to a degree, they do go hand in hand. It just so happened that the council had asked me to put in my city manager's report a status of LED while you had asked me for tonight on Main Street. The city completed a number of projects, initiated a number of projects in 2015. And at this point in time, the city has now some realistic experience and better understanding of the traffic impact on the city's central business district as a result of the Texas Department of Transportation overpass project. And finally, a major obstacle was overcome when the city of Bastrop was able to purchase and have removed the Bastrop advertising building. So with all of the accomplishment, the time has come to push forward on the LED and the BEDC Main Street projects. As I stated, throughout 2015, there were several comments or suggestions that were suggested to be incorporated into these projects. In my opinion, the City of Bastrop and Bastrop Economic Development Corporations need to discuss and ensure that they have a consensus on certain elements related to these two projects. The following issues may not be all-encompassing, so it's vitally important that both the council and the EDC feel free to apply any additional issues you wish to have addressed if I haven't covered. Number one, the LED project and the BEDC Main Street project should be incorporated into a single project for bidding purpose. The main reason to combine these projects is that by doing so, the city and BEDC should see a better unit pricing for both of these projects when they go out for bids, resulting in a better overall price for the construction of both of these projects. So there should be cost savings for both the city and BEDC.
Mike, can I say something on that last sentence?
Yes.
So everybody understands that the alley project is
City funded.
city funded and the Main Street is funded by BEDC.
That's why I have it as a BEDC project.
Number two, if it's agreed that both projects should be jointly bidded, then the sequencing of the constructing of these projects should first be to construct the LED improvements. The rationale for doing LED first is that by improving the parking and accessibility in LED, we potentially minimize the impact of reconstructing the South Main Street portion of Main Street project when construction starts on Main Street. And Main Street will be done in 2 phases, so this should lessen the impact with all the improvements done back in LED, since most of those buildings back up and have rear access to LED. Number 3 is a little long.
Can you summarize it?
Just basically, the 921 lot on Main Street, when we started out, and that was the first lot that we bought for the BEDC project, for the LED project, for the LED project, that was the only lot that went from Main Street to Water Street. And when we bought that, initially, I heard comments that we should sell the vacant lot on Main Street, the 921 vacant lot. But the Main Street program wanted a common meeting place. So as part of the design of some improvements for LED, we included an area for meeting space. Well, that meeting space takes away from parking spaces. And I think over time, it's kind of gravitated toward that the vacant lot at 921 become the common meeting place, and that we design the LED to maximize the number of parking spaces that we need back there. And the Downtown Association has leased, for the last 2 years, leased the 921 lot from the city for special events. And the concept is in the downtown to have a meeting place. But that decision has never been made, and that's a decision that needs to be made before we move forward with the LED improvements.
One of my questions has always been that with the modifications on Main Street, if Main Street, by becoming more pedestrian and wider and a more urban, better urban environment, if that won't in some ways offset the need for 921. And that would put it back on the tax rolls, basically.
Right, and that's what was discussed early on. But that question has never been answered, and it really needs to be answered before we can move forward with the final design.
I didn't hear the last part of her question.
She wonders with the improvements that are proposed to be made on the Main Street sidewalk, would that create a sufficient space for common meeting places and put 921 back on the tax rolls? I think that's a discussion that should be held with the Main Street Board, who's made various recommendations on the vacant lot to the council. But at least their perspective is that is ideal for the meeting place, the common meeting place in the downtown area.
Well, I've always been a big fan of putting that lot back on the tax roll, but hopefully to somebody that's in retail.
And that's exactly why I'm bringing it up, because we've been around and around, and I'm just saying until we make that decision, it's difficult to finalize.
You know, though, politically, it's hard at this point to say you'll have a battle going either way, and maybe it's just leave it off for right now. Go ahead and do the Main Street improvements, see how it's working, and then go back and look at it on another day.
Well, the only other problem is we've just done a temporary repair to allow additional parking in LED, and some of the businesses that front on Main Street, because of the way the drainage works back there, actually flood out in certain rain events, and we were hoping to solve that problem as well with the LED project. So there's just a lot of issues that we have to address. But it's ultimately up to the council. But
when you
my
design
feelings stay the same. I'm just amazed that you're taking this long on deciding whether to put that back on the market for retail when we put a lot of money in marketing downtown and bringing people to downtown Bastrop, having a vacant lot and not having any more retail that we have available for people that come into Bastrop. You know, I'm just amazed we sat on this long.
Well, we had-
No fault of yours.
Well,
And,
but
you
in
know-
essence, we didn't really sit it long, it just took that long
Yeah.
to get all the property put together, and it's just been in the last year.
No, not the project, we sit on whether, decide what to do in 921. I talked, not the project itself.
If I were you, which I'm not, I would design it like there was infill, so you have that option in the future.
Okay. When the BDC decides to go forward with the Main Street project, the reconstruction of the Main Street in its current alignment, what I'm saying, if you go to the next slide. When BDC decided to go forward and voted to approve the Main Street project, the original scope of the project was to reconstruct and replace Main Street and the sidewalk in its current alignment. And over time, there have been several options regarding the parking alignment, the sidewalk widths, which I have outlined for you in each one of the options that have been discussed over time. And correspondingly, I need to know what kind of alignment you want. Because,
What do you mean, what kind of alignment, Mike?
well, are you going to go with parallel parking? You're going to go with head-in parking? Do you want the sidewalks extended out? All of that was not thought about when you approved this project. The project was set forth with a current alignment and the current sidewalks.
Well, and you're right, we need to come to some conclusion, because I think this board voted on probably a year ago that all the money we were gonna spend is what we decided we were gonna spend. If somebody came and made different changes to that, the city was gonna be responsible, if I remember that right. But this board decided they were spending X amount of dollars on what we decided to do first. And any other changes that was gonna be made by whatever group or whoever in town, that the city was gonna take up the difference of the cost.
Then
This board voted on that.
Because the only real option, if we were going to consider something in addition, or we were going to change that decision, Willie, would be expanding the sidewalks. I mean,
That's
we
what I'm
already
talking
have,
about.
we already have an ordinance for parallel parking on one side and angle on the other side on the south end. So we've already done half of that already. The council's already decided that. And I think if the board's inclined, following what Willie said, historically, unless we're inclined to make a change, then the pavement's going to be the same, and the sidewalks are going to be the same, and everything else will follow in.
Decision, not a BEDC decision.
The question is the money, though. I mean,
Well, we
Well,
have a
BEDC is the
limited,
money, do we get to decide what it's designed, how it's designed?
do you expand the sidewalks? The only question I can see that's even an option.
The point I'm talking about, when we designed and started this, we had it, I'm gonna say for better terms, it was a generic sidewalk. And then people got involved, committees got involved and said they wanted to see this type of sidewalk, that type of sidewalk.
What kind of sidewalk?
And this board came back and said, all we're gonna spend is what we decided for, and that was a generic sidewalk. And if the city chose to do something else, the city was gonna be responsible for the additional cost.
so.
Yeah, I will say
for
one aspect. In the public meetings that we held early on in trying to get people to sign on for the easements, the one issue that has consistently come up again, and again, is that when you do the Main Street project, do something with the light and those islands, because people don't like it. And you can do it, a simple little thing as putting an aluminum diamond plate across there so there's not a hole there, or reconfigure it and extend your sidewalks out and cut that front off. But that is one item that people have repeatedly told me, you really need to address those islands because we don't like it.
Would it cost more to, I'm sorry, would it cost more to take them out? I mean, I think,
Well,
it's
yes,
a
because-
no-brainer to take them out, but would it cost
No,
more?
it's very expensive because there was a core hole drilled about 4 feet deep that was poured with concrete that those set on.
I'm talking about the islands, not the lights.
No, the islands can be taken out very easily.
Okay, so you got to take those out and redo the street anyway.
Well, a portion of them.
So why wouldn't that be a council decision versus a EDC decision about the islands? I mean, I think the islands were a great idea that didn't work.
Well, and you have to see who's, or did they? It may be a small group, small vocal group that, I mean,
I
need
just-
lights down there. The whole thing needs to be designed, and
I think
I've
part
heard
of the
confusion
problem-
about accessibility issues, and what I was hearing from some people you sometimes referenced was incorrect. So, to me, the thing is, still hasn't been vetted or fully designed, so obviously it needs to go through the loop again.
I think part of the problem though with those islands is that the islands are larger than they really needed to be to protect the light fixture. The amount of distance between the curb and the light fixture, I mean, my truck, I still got, if I pull all the way up against it, I still got 1.5 feet or something. If the curb was pushed back, it wouldn't be as intrusive into the drive lane as it is, but.
And when you change parking, it may not be that big an issue anyway, if you go parallel on one side.
I think this is a city issue.
Yep.
I think we voted on what we were gonna spend. I think we let Mike know, said what was voted, that money is still there, what we approved. If there's any change to that, they can come back and ask me.
So here's the money. This board says, here's the money, you figure it out.
Yeah, it's already been approved.
Pretty
Yeah.
much?
Yep, if there's a change and city decides they wanna
Let's help
put
that street.
frill on it and circle it with lights, need more money, come back.
Okay? That's all I need to know.
Thank you.
Main Street.
Yeah.
Nancy's here. Nancy.
Main Street? Monthly report.
Nancy, do you have anything to add for Main Street today?
No.
Okay.
City manager's report?
We did that.
Thank you very much. Downtown business is doing very well.
Comprehensive plan?
Your Main Street
Your neighbor, Christie. Christie, comprehensive plan. Anything new?
has not met.
Okay.
City of Bastrop construction project?
It's in the limited report is in the packet.
And Ted's been in the hospital. So
Ted's been out, and so you don't expect a full report until they figure out what they're doing.
Who's it?
Ted Bowers.
Planning department. Yes.
All right, moving on to 6.
Executive session?
Yes, we have to have one.
Okay.
Y'all have green folders. You don't have one.
We're going to adjourn now to the executive session.
How many items we have, Steve?
In executive session 4.
You wanna go in the back, Steve, or kick people out, or what do you
We can go back. Right, it's up to you guys. Tell,
If we
We're
sit
gonna-
out here, we have to turn off the cameras.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
We're going to have limited action coming out. I think the only thing y'all might take action on will be my evaluation. Other than that, I don't think there'll be any action on any of the 3 projects in public session.
I know, don't give me. Good night, everybody. Hey, Mike. You ready?
Yes.
I've only read an executive session.
You long one more?
We got it. We took care of you.
Okay.